Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a book that's a really wild mix of history and magic and even self-help. It's called The Black Pullet. You guys sent this one in, and let me tell you, it's got it all. Ancient secrets, magical creatures, you name it. We're talking like treasure maps, talking animals. We've even got a magical chicken in the mix.
It's a fascinating blend of elements, that's for sure. It really does read like a grimoire mixed with a philosophy book and a bit of an adventure novel, all in one.
It really does. So, okay, for anyone who hasn't read this yet, let's set the scene a bit. We start with a French officer during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign who ends up in a bit of a tough spot, you could say. He gets separated from his unit, injured, lost in the desert. Talk about a bad day.
And as if being lost and injured in the desert wasn't enough, he stumbles quite literally into the secret chamber. And this chamber is hidden, wait for it, inside the Great Pyramid of Giza.
No way.
Oh, yeah. And inside, he meets a man who claims to be 270 years old.
Okay, no, that's just not fair. This guy's got like a pyramid for an anti-aging routine or something. But okay, so let's talk about this mysterious old man. He's not just hanging out in the pyramid. He claims to be the last guardian of this ancient and powerful magical tradition.
And that's where the Black Pullet gets really interesting. It's not just about, casting spells or summoning spirits. It emphasizes aligning yourself with this higher, you could say, cosmic order. The text really stresses that true magical power, it comes from within, from cultivating virtues, things like purity, selflessness, that sort of thing.
So less abracadabra and more like align your chakras.
Exactly. The idea is that by purifying your heart and mind, you become like a conduit for this ancient magical power. And, a lot of cultures throughout history have believed that living a virtuous life was essential for accessing the unseen forces of the universe.
It makes you wonder if this whole emphasis on virtue, maybe it was a way of, controlling magic in a way, ensuring it was used for good and not for, getting ahead in a chariot race or something.
That's a really interesting point. And it speaks to the anxieties people have about power in all cultures, really. It doesn't matter if they believe in magic or not. It's like, who can you trust with that kind of power? How do you make sure it's used ethically? These are questions that we've been grappling with for centuries.
It's like Spider-Man's Uncle Ben always said, with great power, there should be a really, really long instruction manual with like a whole section on moral dilemmas.
Well, maybe not in those exact words.
Okay, maybe I'm paraphrasing a bit, but you get the point. The Black Pullet really seems to be saying that magic isn't just about spells and rituals, it's about aligning yourself with a higher purpose.
Exactly. And one of the most intriguing parts of this is how the book presents the Black Pullet itself. It's not just some random chicken. It's described as like the ultimate treasure hunter, this creature that can sniff out riches beyond your wildest dreams.
Right. Who needs a metal detector when you've got a feathered friend leading you straight to buried treasure? But here's where it gets even weirder. The book gives you two different ways to get your hands on this magical pullet.
Right. And that duality is really fascinating. So the first method, it involves this whole elaborate ritual. You need a golden egg, rare herbs, sunlight, you name it. It feels very ceremonial, very external, like you're relying on specific actions and ingredients.
Very follow the recipe to the letter kind of magic.
Exactly.
But then there's this second method, and this one relies solely on a completely black hen and the power of your own imagination. It's almost like the book is giving you two totally different paths to get to the same goal, the external versus the internal.
It's true. This duality, it could be like a metaphor for how people approach enlightenment or even self-mastery. Like, do you rely on rituals and structures, those external things, or do you focus on what's inside, cultivating your power through willpower and visualization?
Wow. That's pretty profound for a book about, a treasure hunting chicken. It's like, what would that be? Like The Secret meets Chicken Run.
Maybe. But the book doesn't stop there. The Black Pullet also throws in talismans. It describes 22 magical objects that can supposedly grant you specific powers.
Yeah, the Black Pullet's just the beginning. The book goes on to describe these talismans, and each one is like connected to a specific power. Some of them can supposedly let you understand what animals are saying. Others promise to make you invisible or even influence your luck. It's kind of like a magical wish list, all wrapped up in rings and amulets.
Okay, I gotta admit, the idea of a talisman that helps me win the lottery, that's pretty tempting. But hold on a sec. Were talismans like a common thing back when this book was supposedly written? Oh, absolutely. Talismans go way back. We're talking ancient civilizations here. The ancient Egyptians, for example, they were really into amulets. They believed those amulets could protect them, bring them luck, even give them magical powers. So
Yeah.
yeah, the whole idea of objects having spiritual or magical meaning, that was definitely a thing in the ancient world.
It makes you think about, like, the psychology of it all. Did people back then really truly believe these objects held power? Or were they more like, good luck charms, something to make them feel better, more in control when life got unpredictable?
That's a question that's kept historians and anthropologists busy for, well, a long time. It was probably a bit of both, honestly. Belief is a powerful thing. If you really believe an object has power, it can change how you think, how you act. It might even end up like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So you're saying just believing in the talisman could actually make it work, like a placebo effect, but for magic. But here's what gets me. The Black Pullet doesn't just describe these talismans, it actually tells you how to make them.
Exactly. And that's where this book goes from just fantastical stories to an actual how-to guide. It's got instructions, diagrams. It even talks about astrological timing for making these things. It makes you think the author, or whoever collected all this knowledge, really wanted people to use it.
It's like a magical DIY project. But if they wanted people to use this knowledge, why all the secrecy? The book keeps saying, like, don't tell anyone about this.
That's a really important point. And it gets to the heart of this whole thing about power, knowledge, and ethics. You see it all through the Black Pullet.
Yeah.
The book keeps stressing that you got to be careful with real magical power. You have to use it responsibly. It's not just about keeping the knowledge secret either. It's about protecting the person with that knowledge, making sure they don't use it for the wrong reasons.
So it's not enough to be a good person. You got to be a good person who can keep a secret. It's almost like the book is saying true power works best in the shadows, away from people who might abuse it or get corrupted by it.
That's a really sharp observation. And it makes you wonder if the book is talking about hidden mastery, that idea that true enlightenment isn't about fame or recognition. It's about quietly working on yourself, developing your potential. It's a theme you see in a lot of spiritual traditions throughout history.
It's amazing how the Black Pullet, with all its crazy stories, keeps coming back to these really human questions. The desire for power, the responsibility that comes with knowledge,
Right.
wanting something more out of life.
Absolutely. And maybe that's why these kinds of stories still fascinate us. They give us a peek into a world where magic could be real, where ancient secrets hold the key to, I don't know, unlocking something inside us.
Yeah.
And where even a chicken can be your guide to enlightenment.
It really makes you think about, like, how we see the world now. We tend to explain everything with logic and science, but the Black Pullet, it reminds us that for a long, long time, magic and spirituality, it was all connected to everyday life. It wasn't something separate.
Right.
And it's easy to just brush off stuff like, I don't know, treasure hunting chickens and talismans that grant wishes as just like silly superstitions. But maybe, just maybe, there's something real underneath those fantastical stories. I don't mean real in a literal sense, but like a deeper truth about what humans want, our relationship with the unknown, and
That's
just
true.
the power of belief itself.
It's true. And what's really interesting is that even if we don't believe in the magic part of the Black Pullet, the themes it talks about, they still mean something to us today. The whole idea of self-improvement, wrestling with temptation, trying to be a good person, wanting to find our true potential, these are all things we experience. It doesn't matter what time period or culture you're from.
Yeah, it's like the book is reflecting our own hopes and fears back at us, the big questions we all ask ourselves. Even now, with all our technology, it's like we still want that sense of wonder, that feeling of being connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Definitely. And maybe there's a lesson there. Maybe we should try to learn from some of that old wisdom. I'm not saying we should all go out and try to conjure up magical chickens, but maybe we should look inward a little more. Work on our own, good qualities. Be more curious about the world, more open-minded.
So the next time you find yourself saying, that's impossible, think about the Black Pullet for a second. It reminds us that the world is full of mysteries. And sometimes the best treasures aren't buried in the ground. They're buried inside us.
Well said. Well, I hope this deep dive has maybe made you curious about the history of magic, or at least inspired you to look at the world with a little more awe.
We hope you enjoyed this trip into the pages of the Black Pullet. And hey, if you happen to have a black hen handy and you're feeling adventurous, maybe give those treasure hunting instructions a try. Just send us a postcard from your adventures.
Until next time, happy diving.